I was thinking as that song was being sung, I don't have the quote verbatim, there's an Emerson quote where he says something like, when the God of your belief finally fails you, you'll be fired with God's presence. I think that's a really good summary of what we are here to learn. You know, our path is really to understand not God as a concept or as a philosophy, even as a faith or a belief, but to understand that this thing that we call God, or this experience of God, is an immediate, indwelling moment experience. It is the very life of us being made clear to us. It's not about anything that we're separate from in time or space. And so that's sort of the substance of today's message today. Goodbye, yes. Thanks for coming. Plenty of time for the beach. You could sum up this talk with where is God? It's your turn. Thank you. And when? Okay. Now the ushers can come forward. Just had to get my big line in there. No. We have more, of course. The board's doing my evaluation. I can't do a 5-minute talk, you know. So I want to read from a couple of texts here that sort of jumped off the shelf this morning, the way it goes, you know. And I'd been thinking about this topic all week. But then Emily Cady came to my mind, and this is a classic book. If you have not read, studied, digested, immersed yourself in it, I highly recommend you do. I'm going to be using this. I'm going to be gone next Sunday. When I come back, I'm going to start teaching some Sunday lessons from this. It's called Lessons in Truth. It has no subtitle. It says Lessons in Truth. And for many people, it's sort of been it's a primer for people to understand the unity philosophy. Now, it's written in 1903, so you have to understand the language is a little dated, and it also likes male pronouns for God. So there is the he and all of that stuff you have to sift through. But so is A Course in Miracles. So, but we understand that, you know, the reference is to the one presence, one power. Right in the beginning, in the very first chapter, she says this. She says, each man, because you know it's not talking about a man, but each one must sooner or later learn to stand alone with his God. Nothing else avails. Nothing else will ever make you master of your own destiny. There is in your own indwelling Lord all the life and health, all the strength and peace and joy, all the wisdom and the support that you ever need or desire. No one can give it to you. No one can give to you as can this indwelling. It is the spring of all joy and comfort and power. Hitherto, not a word I've used lately, before, we have believed that we were helped and comforted by others, that we received joy from outside circumstances and surroundings, but it is not so. All joy and strength and good spring up from a fountain within one's own being. And if we only knew this truth, we should know that, because God in us is the fountain out of which springs all our good. Nothing that anyone does or says or fails to do or say can take away our joy and our good. Amen? Amen. Isn't that a powerful statement? And it does. It is the essence of Unity's teachings. It's the essence, because it takes this whole notion of our sense of well-being that we ordinarily put outside of ourselves, and we attach and we rely upon people and circumstances for the well-being, for the life. And if people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and life is going according to our preferences, then we feel good. And we notice, don't we, how that is a roller coaster ride, because sometimes people are treating us just the way they're supposed to, and other times they're not. Have you noticed? And they somehow just can't quite get our preferences, no matter how many times we tell them. And when all our prayers to God or to the universe or to life, that life should turn out a particular way for us, fall flat because we're not in control of this external reality. And so it behooves us to come back home to the only choice that we have. The only choice that you and I have in any given moment is how we respond to life. And somehow, in a magical way or in a very divine, graceful way, when this changes here, our life does change. That our circumstances change. Even people get nicer, have you noticed? And the last thing I want to read from Emily Cady, just for today, and there'll be more for the weeks ahead. So the human intelligence is so accustomed to the sound of words heard from childhood that often they convey it no real meaning. For example, do you stop to think, really to comprehend what it means to be, quote, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, which is Romans 8:17. It means, as Emerson says, that every man is the inlet and may become the outlet of all there is in God. It means that all that God is and has is in reality for us, his only heirs, if we only know how to claim our inheritance. These are powerful words, and it squarely flies in the face of the ordinary surface mind understanding. And it's true that every one of us probably, unless we have completely dissolved the ego mind and the tendency to project outside of ourselves, wake up in the morning and we begin to think about our day. And we begin to think those situations and people and challenges in our life and putting great hope that those things will go our way, don't we? There's a tendency to still sort of hold hope that life will find favor with us. And when we do that, we eliminate the very place of grace, or we overlook the real abiding place that is available to you and I, which is here and now, which is that place of peace and wholeness that is here within us, that is capable of being with life and not being disturbed. These are the high teachings of the masters. It's also the teachings of unity. I want to read also, because it's interesting, sort of the juxtaposition of this book that was written in 1901 and this book by Eckhart Tolle that was written, 10 years ago perhaps. And he wrote, and these are the essences of some of his teachings from The Power of Now, his classic book. So we ended with Emily Cady saying, you have to claim this inheritance, that it's available. You are made in the image and likeness, and you can be heirs to Christ, or heirs to the awakening, heirs to the unconditional love, heirs to all that there is in God. You can be the inlet and the outlet. But there's a part of that we miss, and that is that we have to claim it. We have to claim it. And that sometimes what people will say is spiritual arrogance, is when people like us say, I'm claiming my divine good. I'm claiming my, unconditional love. I'm claiming that, God loves me no matter what. Or I'm claiming, abundance. Or I'm claiming peace that passes human understanding. And to some people that sounds arrogant, because to some understanding it would be that that's something that is dispensed to you conditionally. But the truth is, it's already what you are. It's already your true nature. So to claim it is only to agree with what is, not to make real something that is yet to come if you are maybe somehow worthy. So how do we claim it? Eckhart says this: on the surface, it seems that the present moment is only one of many moments. Each day of your life appears to consist of thousands of moments where different things happen. Yet if you look more deeply, is there not only one moment ever? Is life ever not this moment? This one moment, now, is the only thing you can never escape from. the one constant factor in your life. No matter what happens, no matter how much your life changes, one thing is certain: it's always now. Since there is no escape from the now, why not welcome it? Become friendly with it. Do you see how that would be the way that we would claim this divine inheritance? Because if the presence and the power that we call God, or by whatever name, can only be recognized when? We don't believe in a future reality. This is a construct of the mind, this idea of a future, and of a past, of course, as well. But if the present of God is only available as presence, then it would make sense that only thing that's separating you and I from the experience of the presence of God is not where God is, but where we are. And we say at the end of our service, wherever we are, God is. I would not argue with that, but I would also add that when we are somewhere else in our mind, it will feel like God is not here. Has anyone had that experience in the last 10 minutes or so? Hopefully not in the last 10 minutes, but we know how the mind drifts off. Let me go on here. He says, Eckhart says, to have your attention in the now is not a denial of what is needed in your life. That's another erroneous thought. Oh, I can't be here now because I have so much to worry about. Who's going to worry if I don't? I have a job. That's to worry about this situation. He says, it is in recognizing what is primary. That's all. Then you can deal with what is secondary with greater ease. It is not saying I'm not dealing with things anymore because there is only the now. No, find what is primary first and make the now into your friend, not your enemy. Acknowledge it, honor it, and when the now is the foundation and the primary focus of your life, then your life unfolds with ease. This is powerful. It's so simple, but is counterindicated by the mind that thinks that life is happening outside of ourselves, and we give more credence to what's happening in terms of events and persons and circumstances to the power of presence, which is the power and the presence that is so much greater than our intellect, so much greater than our ability to strategically deal with life. If we're just dealing with our, this mind, and it can be a capable mind, it can be very smart and have lots of education and everything else, but wouldn't you rather be connected with the infinite intelligence of the universe? Wouldn't you rather be connected with love that has no bounds, with a peace that passes human understanding? And then from that place to act, as opposed to feeling like, no, I've got something to do here. And when all that gets handled, then I'm going to spend some time meditating on peace. See, we tend to get it in reverse. We all do. It's a normal human tendency. And the last reading I have is about accepting this moment. This is the reason that we have to hear these lessons over and over again is because they seem paradoxical. They seem contradictory, right? To the human understanding, to the surface mind. When you completely accept this moment, when you no longer argue with what is, the compulsion to think lessens and is replaced by an alert stillness. You are fully conscious, yet the mind is not labeling this moment in any way. This state of inner non-resistance opens you to the unconditioned consciousness that is infinitely greater than the human mind. This vast intelligence can then express itself through you and assist you both from within and from without. That is why, by letting go of inner resistance, you often find the circumstances do change for the better. That, my friends, is my shortest talk ever, but there's nothing more to say. This is so powerful. It's so immediately apparent to me that this is all we need to do, all I need to do, yeah? And I just want us to recognize that what it is that we have been striving for. This is this overlooking tendency that we have, that someday, out there over the rainbow, there's going to be some better day. And there may be different circumstances, but if our orientation to our sense of well-being is not grounded in an inner sense of well-being, life will always have to be a certain way for me to be okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the teaching is, once again, it's when we have a tendency to go out and to look for our good, outside of ourselves. It's to remember that it's a journey back to the self, to the true self. As the prodigal son discovered, it didn't matter. Even he got half of his inheritance. He couldn't make enough happiness in the world, and he ended up feeling completely bereft of a sense of abundance and well-being and love, and he realized that everything that he was looking for out there, outside of himself, was at home, which is the metaphor for being home here with our indwelling spirit, God, guide. And the great paradox and the great beauty of this is we notice that when we begin to live from here, live from a sense of well-being here, we recognize it, and we assiduously begin to see through those blocks, those things that we think need to be a certain way. We begin to see them as imposters, that they aren't really barriers to our well-being. They're just beliefs that you and I have held for a long time that have represented what we think needs to be gone in order for us to be okay. It really needs to happen is we need to be able to see that they come from an ego. They come from a false sense of self. They're not real in the real sense. The only thing that's real is the love and the light and the glory of spirit, which is here and now. And so it can call us time and time again to be more honest about what really is going on and what's really causing us to feel the way we feel, and to begin to see through those things that are blocking us. And I've had this conversation with so many people over the years that unity is a wonderful philosophy, and it's really just now sort of growing up in a sense. For a long time, unity did not talk about the obstacles to peace, as it does in A Course in Miracles, for example. It didn't talk about the shadow. It didn't talk about the limiting beliefs, those things which stand in the way of us having the realization of the presence and the power and the love of God. That wanted to kind of let's just talk about, the good and the great and the wonder of spirit. And it's wonderful, but if what keeps coming up for us is an appearance of something that is less than love and peace and joy, then that's where the work is for us. There isn't any more affirmations that are going to get rid of those things. We can affirm all day long that, God is my only reality, and love is my only reality, and peace is my only reality. You can affirm that all day, but if you're still harboring strong feelings and beliefs in you about not being enough, not being lovable, etc., that those are going to get in the way of your realization. So this is a psycho-spiritual path. That's what seems to work the best, and that's why we share it here. That's why we have things like the Q process that we bring in, along with the high spiritual teachings. We don't just say, God loves you and God is good all the time and leave you there, because most people will get confounded by those absolute statements, and they'll keep bumping up against those false beliefs that they have and wonder why the spiritual path is not working for them. And I've had to do so much work on that, and I'm still working on that. But I believe that I'm making progress, and I think the people who are doing this work in a very sincere and earnest way of removing those blocks are experiencing more of the presence and the power and the love of God. And it's my responsibility to share that with you for whatever works in my life, whatever works in the majority of people who follow this journey. So, you hear these words over and over again, and sometimes what we overlook is the things that we don't want to do, the things that we don't want to look at. And this week, I got a major one I had to look at. Oh, fun. Isn't it fun? And I was working with a spiritual teacher, and it just came up. And it's an old story. It's an old story that I have. We all have an old story. And it had to do with projecting something outside of myself, which is what we do. We feel this discomfort inside of us, and we can name it you or that or something as the cause of my discomfort. And I was made to see one more time that it was a feeling that I was having that I had created in my own mind. It was something that's long-standing, goes all the way back to, when I was a wee little one, we all have those. But it was so nicely concealed, or it was shrouded in this very sophisticated philosophical argument about sort of concealing that it wasn't just me just holding this, false belief. There was really some real dynamics going on out here, and so, I mean, we can get really good at creating stories of separation and stories of justifying our projections. But, when we have to come clean with the truth, we come clean with our God, with our truth, with radical self-honesty, it shows itself. And that's a day to celebrate, because I felt so much freer when I had that realization, even though at first it was hard to hear, no, I could see it coming. I wanted to run, but it was so important. And I don't need to share it with you. I don't need to share everything with you, But you probably know what it is without me even saying. It's a classic. We all have it. So my commitment is to become more honest about what's blocking my experience of well-being, and to stop thinking that I can somehow pray my way to a better day, because my belief in what we know and we say is that there can't be any more God in your life. There can't be any more love in your life, but there can be more experience of love in your life. And we are the gatekeepers that determines that experience, because it doesn't come from outside in. It comes from inside. And if I'm holding on to something, that can be the occlusion of the love artery, That can cause spiritual angina and heartache and heartbreak and all those things. And when I'm open to that love, then I am invulnerable to the lovelessness that I find in the world. That is what awakening is about. It's not about reaching some transcendent thing where we're going to transcend this mind and go up into some heavenly consciousness. It's going to be right here, walking our walk on this earth, dealing with people and places and things and certain situations and circumstances, and becoming increasingly aware of the well-being that is here and our capacity to deal with life out here. And we can only do that if we are where? Here and now. So for such a time as this, whatever this is, it's the awareness of the presence and the power and the love of God here and now. And whatever work there is for us to do, it's to remember that and to begin to loosen the hold that false beliefs have on us, be able to see through them in a way that allows them to be more porous and allows us to experience this reality more deeply and more powerfully. And we can do this progressively over time. If we're fortunate, grace will come and we'll be dissolved. But that happens in maybe 1 in a million people. For the rest of us, we have to work progressively towards the removing of these false beliefs. And then with the same level that we release them, the presence and the power will be more increased in our experience. And so Meister Eckhart said, it's a subtraction process. It's not an addition process. It's not taking in more God somehow, as if you could, considering that it's your very nature. It's about subtracting what's not true, releasing what's not true, dropping the false self and the pretense and the belief about people and circumstances and things as being the problems in my life, and realizing that the problem is here at the level of where I obstruct it and only delay what is available now. Now I'm done. Amen.